The day is the 24th of April 2013. The location, Dhaka district, Bangladesh. Husnira Akhtar, a 30-year-old woman, woke in her small hut to go through her normal morning routine that she had gone through for many years prior. She prepared a small breakfast to have with her husband, Abu Sufyan. Upon finishing their breakfast, it was time for both of them to head to work. Husnira and Abu both worked at a garment production factory. They worked in separate departments of the factory, but they enjoyed the fact they could walk together to work every day. The factory they worked in was situated on the higher levels of an 8-story building, as the lower levels were in use from other different manufacturing businesses, a few shops, and even a bank. As they both entered the building, ready for a day's work, they noticed something seemed off, but they couldn't quite understand what was wrong, so they carried on as normal. They said their goodbyes and walked to their separate departments. Husnira, the wife, was noticing something especially unusual when she arrived at her factory floor. Some of the workers, her colleagues, were anxiously walking around and refusing to work. She even remembers somebody shouting out that it wasn't safe. But Husnira looked at her manager, and the expression he showed filled her with reassurance. So being the dedicated hard worker that she was, she took her place on the factory line. On the other side of the room, workers began turning on large generators to power up the machines. Just a few seconds later, the whole room was plunged into complete darkness. Husnira awoke, disorientated and unsure of what had happened. As the disorientation wore off, she realized she was unable to move. She used her senses to figure out where she was and what was stopping her from moving. What she felt sent shivers down her spine. She felt and knew that between both sides of her were the lifeless bodies of 2 other co-workers. She felt like she was in some sort of nightmare, except she wasn't, and there was no waking up from this ordeal. The entire building structure collapsed in on itself, burying and crushing thousands of workers beneath the weight of debris, which resulted in the instantaneous loss of hundreds of lives. She tried desperately to free herself, but nothing would work. She lay there helplessly in the pitch black, buried deep under a mountain of bricks and bodies. She remained this way for over 5 hours, which felt like a lifetime. Eventually, she was discovered by rescuers who pulled her out and quickly sent her to the nearby hospital, where she soon found out the extent of her injuries. A concussion, cracked ribs, and fractured arms that were so severe they would prevent her from ever working again. The body of Abu, her husband, was found a week later, crushed under a concrete pillar. Husnira actually saw the body of her own spouse in the worst way imaginable, and all she could think was how disposable they were as garment factory workers. Before the event took place, employees of the garment factory and managers had been arguing in the courtyard outside of the building, many reluctant to enter as they feared it was unsafe. 2 days earlier, explosion-like sounds were heard from the structure, followed by visibly deep cracks appearing. They had even called in an engineer to investigate the integrity of the structure. The engineer, upon seeing the cracks, immediately fled the building, urging the rest of the workers to evacuate, and so the bank on the lower floor had already completely evacuated its workforce. But despite all these warning signs, factory managers wanted work to be carried on as usual. Shockingly, some say they were told they would not be paid that month's wage if they did not go to work as normal. The final death toll was 1,134, with 2,500 injured. A truly horrific nightmare that could have easily been prevented by management. Fast forward to the year 2023, a decade since the tragic collapse of the Rana Plaza, and 54.5% of the survivors are grappling with unemployment. Respiratory challenges, vision impairments, limb loss and difficulties in walking or moving have rendered many survivors incapable of returning to work, while also remaining as a permanent reminder of what happened on that tragic day. It is considered the deadliest accidental structural failure in modern human history. The building, originally built in 2006 by owner Abdul Kelek and his son Sohail Rana, built the Rana Plaza directly on top of a pond which completely compromised structural integrity. The owner then used his political allies to gain unusual permits to expand the building to 5 stories. Still not satisfied, he also had an extra 4 floors added, which their building permit had not authorised. Not only that, but these extra floors were not built with any supporting walls, completely disregarding the Bangladesh National Building Code, the vibrations from heavy industrial machinery, and even the footsteps of thousands of workers made the Rana Plaza a ticking time bomb. The original owner, Abdul Khalek, died from COVID-19 in June 4th, 2020, leaving his son, Rana, and 37 others, including government officials, charged with murder and could receive the death penalty if they are found responsible for the collapse of the Rana Plaza. As of 2021, both the murder trial and the violation of the building code trial are still pending. Only Rana is in custody. The others accused are on bail, on the run, or already dead. I'll now show a short collection of photographs that were taken on that day, but viewer discretion is advised. Some of these are quite graphic. Thank you for joining me on this episode of True Disaster. If you do feel like you got something out of this episode, please consider subscribing. Thank you, and goodbye.